For today's video, I felt like doing something a little bit different. This comes from an idea that I saw on Twitter. Someone reposted something that just said, ask me my top 3 anything. And they were responding to it on Twitter. But I thought actually this might make a really fun video idea, sort of Q&A style, but a little bit off the beaten path. So I asked you guys on Instagram to send me questions for my top 3 anything. And today I'm gonna try and rapid fire answer as many as possible. Let's start off with ice cream flavors. My top 3 ice cream flavors. To be completely honest, I'm not very picky. I love desserts in general, and ice cream has always been one of my absolute favorites, but they probably have to be in no particular order: mint, hazelnut, and coffee / espresso. That comes as like zero surprise to any of you. Anything with nuts like pistachios or almonds or anything like that, I also really love, but of all of the nut flavors, hazelnut has to be my favorite. And mint is a little bit more of a recent thing that the past like 2-3 years, I've discovered how much I love mint. Basically anything, including mint tea, mint desserts, mint whatever. I absolutely love it. Top 3 Lord of the Rings characters. Éowyn probably has to be my absolute favorite. I even wrote a song from Éowyn's perspective. I'm kind of obsessed with that character. For the other 2, I'm gonna go super cliche and say Aragorn and Legolas, because Aragorn has always been one of my favorites since I was a kid. I loved the character of Aragorn, and Legolas I love because I have always loved elves. I love the sort of mystery and angelic qualities and the sort of elegance and delicacy. I'm a huge sucker for that type of fantasy people. My top 3 kinds of wine. This is difficult. Red, white, and rosé. Just kidding. I think it'd have to be, I'm gonna go regions. French regions are definitely the ones that I know the most. So I think I'd have to say Bourgogne, Languedoc, and Côte du Rhône, I think, are probably the top 3 regions that I generally buy wine from when I even pay attention to region. Otherwise, I just go for whatever seems good. Since coming to France especially, I have really tried to understand different types of wine, to listen anytime someone who knows more about wine than me will talk about it and explain things. And I've really tried to make mental notes, but I still feel like there's just so much more that I have to learn, and I know so very little. So on your average day, if I feel like a bottle of wine, I'll just kind of go to the Monoprix, you know, like the grocery store, and just see what looks good and what's a decent price. But if I am actually gonna pay attention to region, then those tend to be the regions that I go for. My top 3 operas. I am still very much an opera noob. I grew up in the orchestral setting, so my opera knowledge is very, very limited. And even when I know specific arias or specific overtures to operas and things like that, I don't actually know the opera that well. So it's very hard for me to actually pick an opera that I know that I like from start to finish. So I'm gonna go super, super basic and just say Carmen, La Traviata, and Les Troyens by Berlioz. A lot of people asked me my top 3 books, or my top 3 French books, or my top 3 fantasy books. This is absolutely impossible to do. Even if I broke it down into genres or different categories, I think it would still be impossible for me to just decide on 3 books that I want to put on this list and leave all the others out. I guess the most influential books are the ones that I would want to read over and over. And it's gonna be series like Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings series. The Two Towers is my favorite book of those, but I like the whole series. Harry Potter as well. I don't think I can pick a favorite Harry Potter book. I think I have before in a tag or something. I chose one to be my favorite, but even then I wasn't completely convinced that that was actually my favorite because I can't pick just one. Gosh, I don't know, because I feel like I need classics on here too, because some of the classics that I read were for school or because I discovered an author through school, and then I read some of the other classic literature, and so many of those have been so influential in my life, like Pride and Prejudice, like The Picture of Dorian Gray. So many of these I love. I can't pick 3. Let's just decide that I can't pick 3 books. You can check out my Goodreads if you want to see sort of some of the books that I've read, but even then I don't keep that very updated, and before I had Goodreads I read a ton of stuff that I just never added to my Goodreads, so not even that is comprehensive. A few people also asked for my top 3 movies, and once again I'm kind of stuck in trying to pick just 3, and even if I broke it down by genre or category, I don't think I could do it. But I guess the Lord of the Rings movies as a unit, because you should watch those as a unit anyway, and you should watch the extended versions as a unit. Just take like an entire day of your life, dedicate it to Lord of the Rings. It's so worth it. Then I guess if we just think about movies that I've seen multiple times and I could watch multiple times more, I guess I'd have to say Pride and Prejudice and Tangled. Especially Tangled, I have watched so many times. I can practically quote that movie from start until finish. And yet, if right now you asked me, do you want to go watch Tangled? I would say, let me get some popcorn. My top 3 Paris cafes. I have been to a lot of cafes just once, and they've been great experiences, but it's really hard to say that that's a top cafe because it's not necessarily some place that I'm so attached to that I would recommend it to everyone. I would have to say KB Coffee Roasters. If you follow me on Instagram, I recently discovered them a couple months ago, but I had had their coffee before as gifts from friends. So I knew already that they roasted really good coffee, but then I finally went to the actual cafe and it's so good. And so I've gone there 2 or 3 more times since then. And so that would definitely be one that I can 100% recommend as a top cafe. Other than that, I guess I would have to say La Fontaine de Belleville is really good and La Caféothèque is super good. But there are plenty of other places that I've gone to. Again, I've gone to once, they've been great experiences, but I haven't returned to yet. So I don't really know that I can say they're a top cafe just yet. My top 3 ways to de-stress. I have a lot of experience with this. I tend to get stressed fairly frequently. I would say for me, probably my go-to would be to put on a funny TV show. That's something that really often helps. I can't say it always helps, but if I'm feeling super stressed out about something, or even if I'm feeling upset about something, a funny TV show like The Office, for example, a show that I've seen millions of times so that I know that I'm gonna like it and I know it's gonna be funny, that is probably my go-to and is probably the most foolproof I have. Maybe even more foolproof than that though is cuddling with my cat. Hamlet is probably, yeah, he has to be the best way to de-stress for me. I know this is difficult if you don't have a pet, but for me, cuddling a cat or a dog or basically any animal that can be cuddled makes a huge difference. It's a huge de-stressor for me. I know there's actually like science behind why, you know, cuddling and even hugging like a human can be very comforting, but for me, I just feel like because I grew up with a dog, because I grew up with animals and I've always loved animals, that is just one thing that works like a charm on me. And then probably my third thing would be to sing, or at least just to play music. But for me, if I play something I can sing to, sometimes that will be like something more theatrical from a musical or something really acoustic. Other times it's gonna be like Taylor Swift or Little Mix or something completely pop crazy. But whatever it is, I feel like singing just lets so much stress go for me. And I love music, I love to sing, so I enjoy myself as well. Countries you haven't visited but you want to. So many. Oh gosh, how can I pick top 3? Probably, let's see, New Zealand is high up on the list. I really want to go to New Zealand. Japan, I've talked about that before as well. And then probably Argentina, I would really love to visit. And as I mentioned in a very recent video, I had looked into a study abroad program back in the day in Buenos Aires. And ever since then, I've really wanted to go because I just feel like I need to fulfill that dream that I had. My top 3 holiday destinations in France, in Europe, and worldwide. Okay, well, worldwide, I kind of just did. In terms of in France and in Europe, in France, I would like to go back to the Provence area again because I went last summer for a wedding and I managed to see a couple of things during that time, but it was kind of just a long weekend and I was mostly there for a wedding, so I didn't actually visit that much. I would love to just see anything coastal, I guess, on the Mediterranean, not necessarily Provence. I would also really like to go to the Basque region. I went one time for a random work trip last year, but I didn't really get to experience that much, so I would love to go to actually like enjoy myself a little bit more. And then I would also like to go to Strasbourg because I've never been. I've been to Frankfurt, in which case we like passed through Strasbourg, but I've never actually been. I would love to go for the Christmas markets, but I know everybody does that, so it might be like super crowded, but it's supposed to be very beautiful in the winter time, so I would love to go there. And then finally in Europe, Rome is very high on the list, but I am going. I also mentioned that on Instagram. I have a trip planned for Rome. Berlin, I really want to go. And then I think I would have to say Prague. I've heard a lot of really good things about Prague. Oh no, but Vienna too. Oh, there are so many places, I can't pick. Oh, and then I really want to go to Greece. I would love to go to Athens. I cannot pick 3 of anything. Why did I do this video? I don't know why I did top 3. Have a top 10. Oh, this one's a bit easier. My top 3 sports I like to watch. None of them. That's not completely true. I do understand and somewhat enjoy watching soccer/football. Mostly just when it's the World Cup, but even then I understand the sport and I think that makes a big difference because I don't understand most of the rules for most sports because I don't really care to understand most of the rules for most sports. I've tried understanding rugby, I've tried watching some games because that is a much bigger thing in France, but even then I just don't really enjoy it that much. Baseball, I understand the basic rules and I watched that a lot growing up, but I'm not that interested. Ooh, can we count Olympic sports? Because if we can count Olympic sports, gymnastics and figure skating round out my list. My top 3 Paris arrondissement. Those are the areas, by the way, in Paris, the sort of counties, would you call it counties? I don't know what you would call it in another city because I'm so Parisian at this point. It's hard for me to pick just purely based on the arrondissement because I feel like there are certain places I like to go and I guess certain areas, but much more specific than the entire arrondissement. But I guess I would have to say the 4th I really like. It has the Marais. A lot of good coffee shops, a lot of good local stores, and one of the oldest parts of Paris. I used to live in the 12th, which is kind of right next to the 4th, and I love the 12th. In terms of livability, it also has the area around Bastille. I think that's considered 12. It's all kind of, it's like at the corner of 12, 11, and 4. So I guess 12, 11, and 4 would have to be kind of my favorite arrondissement in general. And if you're listening to me right now and you don't know the geography of the arrondissement in Paris, you probably think it sounds really ridiculous that 12, 11, and 4 can be all next to each other. It goes in a big, like, it goes like this. So all around the city. You have to look at a map of it for it to actually make sense. Otherwise, it's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit complicated even when you look at a map. My top 3 languages I'd like to learn: Italian and German for sure. I started learning a bit more German and then I've now segued back into a little bit of Italian because I'm going to Rome in September, so I'd like to learn a little bit so I can at least like order food and stuff maybe in Italian. So definitely those 2. And then for the 3rd, probably Russian. I would really like to learn Russian. I know it's a huge challenge because of the different alphabet and everything, so if I actually wanted to dive into that, I think I would really need to commit myself, which I don't have the time to do right now or the energy to do right now, especially not because I still really want to learn Italian and German. But one day, if and when I have time, I would really like to learn some Russian. My top 3 fruits. Plums, peaches, and cherimoyas. Oh, cherimoyas. They're really hard to find and they're not very well known because of that, but Google it, guys. Cherimoya. Look it up, try it if you ever get the opportunity to try it, if you haven't already. I love it. My top 3 violin pieces. I don't know if you mean violin pieces to play or violin pieces just in general to listen to or just that I really like. What was that noise? Thank you, neighbor. My main focus piece in university, the last focus piece that I had, was Cacciatorian, the Cacciatorian Violin Concerto, and I really love it. And I don't quite know if I love it that much because it's just such a great piece, or if also I just have so many wonderful memories tied to it and I spent so much time focusing on that. That was the final piece that I played in university and really just dedicated myself to. So I have a lot of nostalgia, I think, tied to that one, so I'd have to say Cacciatorian. Also, the Bruch Violin Concerto #1. There are 2, I believe, from Bruch, but it's #1. I really like as well. That was also a focus piece for me in high school. And then I really like the Sibelius Violin Concerto as well. I've never played it, but I really like it. I've been listening to it a lot actually recently. My top 3 instruments. Hint, Woodwinds will forever reign supreme. I'm sorry, but you're talking to a violinist and I'm so biased. I'm not even gonna try and hide it. I'm so biased. My favorite instruments would have to be violin, cello, and guitar, probably. All stringed instruments. Yeah, so biased. I do love woodwinds. I do love brass, especially in an orchestra. It makes such a big difference. I really like percussion as well, both in an orchestral setting and in a solo setting even. But yeah, I'm a strings player through and through, so can't even try to hide it. And lastly, let's pick just one more. Oh, my favorite Pixar films. Let's see, so Pixar would be, I'm trying to make sure I don't accidentally say something that's not Pixar because I get them kind of confused sometimes. I guess it would have to be probably Monsters, Inc. The Incredibles is another one that I loved as a kid and I still today quote it all the time. And then, oh, Brave. Brave is Pixar. Brave is one of my all-time favorite movies in any category. Okay, I have been chatting for ages. I have no idea how long this video is gonna end up. I'm gonna try to crop it down to something somewhat decent. I didn't even really notice the time passing. This was really fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed babbling away about my top 3s of everything. Let me know in the comments if you wanna see similar videos to this or if you wanna see a part 2 to this exact video style. Definitely follow me on Instagram as well if you don't, because that's where I ask for these questions. It's where I always ask for my Q&As anymore, and it's where I'm very active on sort of a day-to-day basis. That's not an exaggeration. Every day I am on Instagram, and pretty much every day I'm posting something on Instagram. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.